Welcome back to our channel. Think your penny is worthless? Some rare 1-cent coins are selling for millions. Like and subscribe to see if you have one. In 1976, America celebrated its bicentennial. Flags were flown high, parades filled the streets, and commemorative quarters, halves, and dollars were released to mark 200 years of independence. But not every coin that left the United States Mint that year bore stars or drums or revolutionary design. Some coins, like the unassuming 1-cent Lincoln penny, remained visually unchanged.
No fireworks. No banners.
Just Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, as they had been for years. Most people didn't look twice. After all, the penny wasn't part of the bicentennial celebration series. It was business as usual. The Mint, operating out of Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that year. The copper composition, 95% copper, 5% zinc, was still intact years before the zinc transition of the 1980s. The designs were stable, the dies were set, and production ran smoothly. At least, that's what the records say. But deep within those copper-clad millions, something slipped through. A small oversight, a fleeting error that no one at the Mint noticed, or, if they did, never documented. The kind of mistake that hides in plain sight for decades until someone with patience, curiosity, and a sharp eye brings it to light. It was nearly 30 years later, in a quiet part of Oregon, when a retired machinist named Gerald stumbled upon something strange. He had long since left his trade but had taken up coin collecting as a hobby, something he shared with his grandson on rainy afternoons. One evening, while sorting through an old coffee tin filled with pennies from yard sales and flea markets, he saw a 1976 cent that looked off. The color was dull, not like the others. But that wasn't what made him pause. It was the lettering. Under his loupe, he examined Liberty. The letters weren't just soft, they were doubled. So was "In God We Trust." The 9 in the date had what appeared to be a shadow. His breath caught. He had seen images of double die coins before, mostly from 1955 and 1969s, but never had he heard of one from 1976. He flipped the coin to inspect the reverse. The Lincoln Memorial looked normal, sharp, clean, no signs of doubling. It was only the obverse that showed signs of misalignment, or rather, hub doubling. The telltale signs were there. Strong, raised doubling on key elements, not flat and shelf-like the way mechanical doubling would appear. Gerald weighed the coin. 3.11 grams. Correct. No sign of plating issues or metal loss. He held it next to several other 1976 cents. The differences were undeniable. And yet, he had never seen this variety listed in any guide. He contacted a numismatic specialist he had once met at a regional coin expo. They arranged a meeting. When the expert examined the coin under his equipment, he sat in silence for a long time. Then, slowly, he looked up. "You might have just found something the rest of us missed," he said. They cross-checked known double die lists. 1955, 1969, 1972, 1983, all known. But no listing existed for a 1976 double die obverse from the Philadelphia Mint. None that matched the coin Gerald held in his hand. It was something new, possibly the first known example. The coin was sent for grading. The weight was excruciating. Gerald checked the mail every day, his mind wrestling between excitement and disbelief. Weeks passed. Then the box arrived. Inside was the coin, now sealed and labeled, 1976 1C double die obverse, Discovery piece, MS62 red-brown. Discovery piece, the first of its kind. The label confirmed not only its authenticity, but its place in numismatic history. Word spread quickly. Articles were written. Experts debated whether the doubling was caused by a hub shift during die creation or an unnoticed anomaly that had gone undetected all year. Either way, the result was clear and bold. An unmistakable double die. Collectors began combing through their own 1976 rolls, hoping to find a match. A few surfaced, some in lower grades, others barely legible. But none matched the strength of Gerald's specimen. This doubling was dramatic, obvious. A sharp contrast to the subtle errors that often required heavy magnification to spot. Interest exploded. At an auction in Chicago, A second known example, in VF30 condition, sold for $12, 500. A third, graded negative 50 Australian dollars, fetched over $21,000. But Gerald's coin? It remained untouched, not for sale. He displayed it occasionally at local shows, always behind glass, always watched carefully. It had become more than a penny. It was a window into a mystery. A year later, a former Mint employee, speaking anonymously to a collector's journal, recalled a brief issue in mid-1976. A die was reportedly retired early due to improper alignment, though the internal report didn't specify doubling. That may have been the origin point of the error. A single die used briefly before being pulled, during which a handful of coins like Gerald's slipped into circulation. Today, confirmed examples of the 1976 double die obverse number fewer than 10. Most are in circulated condition. Only 2 are mint state. Gerald's MS62 red-brown remains the highest graded example and the one recognized as the discovery piece. Collectors consider it one of the rarest modern double dies ever released, made rarer by the fact that it occurred in a year dominated by attention toward bicentennial coinage, allowing this error to quietly evade notice. It's become the subject of lectures, articles, and online videos. Specialists analyze the spread of the doubling, the positioning of the letters, the sharpness of the curves. But none of that compares to holding the real thing in hand, where the past speaks in subtle shadows and ghostly outlines. As for Gerald, he still owns the coin. His grandson, now grown, plans to inherit it one day. They both understand that its value isn't just in dollars. It's in the story. A story that began in a forgotten coffee tin and ended with a revelation that reshaped what collectors thought they knew about 1976. And if the coin were ever to be auctioned today, experts estimate its value would fall somewhere between $58,000 and $140,000 depending on market momentum and collector appetite. But for now, it stays where it began, in the careful hands of the man who found it, quiet and gleaming, a penny born of error that became a legend. In the final stretch of the 20th century, the year 1999 arrived with a quiet kind of anticipation. The world was buzzing with fears of Y2K, technology overload, and the dawning of a new millennium. The United States Mint, however, kept its focus steady on the day-to-day task of producing billions of coins for circulation. Among them was the humble Lincoln cent, stamped as always with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. By all appearances, 1999 seemed like just another year in the long history of the 1-cent coin. But buried deep in the rivers of copper-plated zinc coins that flowed out of the mint, something slipped past. Something few would recognize, and even fewer would ever hold in their hands. At first glance, the 1999 Lincoln penny appears entirely ordinary. It weighs 2.5 grams, features a smooth, shiny copper sheen, and carries no flashy commemorative design. It was never meant to stand out. But that's the funny thing about rare coins, they never announce themselves. They hide in pockets, piggy banks, forgotten rolls, and in the corners of junk drawers. And then, one day, someone finds one. That someone was a high school history teacher named Olivia from Wisconsin. She wasn't a professional collector, but she loved old things. Books, stamps, typewriters, and recently started dabbling in coins. It was calming, a tactile escape from lectures and grading papers. One summer afternoon, as she searched through a $25 box of penny rolls from her local bank, she noticed something strange. A 1999 penny with unusually sharp features. Lincoln's profile looked more pronounced, almost sculpted. The rim was bold, almost raised. She flipped it over. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse was crisp, sharper than usual, almost proof-like. Her curiosity sparked. She compared it with several other 1999 pennies. There was no doubt this one was different. She weighed it, 2.5 grams. That was normal. She examined it under a 30x magnifier and then noticed something that didn't belong. The fields, the flat areas around the raised design, were mirror-like, far more reflective than a normal circulation coin. And the detail? Astonishing. Could it be a proof strike that ended up in circulation? Was it an error? She needed answers. She reached out to a coin dealer she had met at a county fair. After taking a look, he furrowed his brow and said, "This isn't your average penny. This might be a transitional error." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of research. What Olivia had discovered, confirmed later by experts, was not just a slightly nicer penny. It was a numismatic anomaly. A 1999 Lincoln cent struck using a proof die, or, more precisely, one struck with high-pressure dies not typically used for circulation coinage. Could have been a test strike, a misfeed, a miscommunication at the mint. No one could say for sure. But the rabbit hole went deeper. Further examination revealed that her coin bore what appeared to be minute doubling on Liberty and the "In God We Trust" motto. Not the flat, shelf-like doubling caused by mechanical shift, but raised, true double die characteristics. On the reverse, the columns of the Lincoln Memorial displayed extra lines, again, a sign of doubling that occurred during die creation, not striking. Numismatists began calling this the 1999 double die penny, though no official designation had yet been assigned by the major grading services. Rumors spread that the mint had been experimenting with die preparation techniques that year, which could explain why a few coins bore proof-like surfaces and doubling features despite being regular issues. The strange part: only a handful of these coins were known to exist. Just 4 had been authenticated by top grading services. Olivia's coin, graded MS67 red with strong double die features, quickly became the most talked about piece in collector forums. But the most intriguing theory of all came from a former mint quality control specialist who reached out privately after the story circulated online. According to him, in late 1998 and early 1999, the mint had begun quietly preparing for the change in coin designs set for the 2000s, state quarters, Sacagawea dollars, and even long-term redesign plans for the cent. During this period, he said, some hybrid test dies were mistakenly used on circulation coin presses. That could explain the sharply struck, doubled coins like Olivia's. Whether this theory was fact or speculation didn't matter. What mattered was that the coin was undeniably rare. Collectors and auction houses came calling. Offers poured in. One offered $30,000 on the spot. Another said he'd go as high as $45,000. But Olivia hesitated. This was more than a penny. It was a mystery, a legacy, a tangible artifact from the twilight of one century and the dawn of another. Months later, a second 1999 double die penny surfaced in Texas, graded MS66 red. It sold privately for a jaw-dropping $72,000. A third was found in upstate New York in VF condition and sold at auction for $21,000, mostly because it had been in circulation for 2 decades. But Olivia's remained the most pristine. She eventually loaned the coin to a museum display focused on American currency anomalies. Her name became known in collector circles, not because she was an expert, but because she had the one thing no one else had: the patience to look closely at something the world had ignored. Years passed. The number of known 1999 double die pennies slowly climbed, but only by a few. As of today, fewer than a dozen authenticated examples exist, and only 3 are considered mint state red. The rest show signs of wear, making them less desirable but no less historically important. The legacy of the 1999 Lincoln cent lives on not in its quantity. After all, over 5 billion were minted, but in its rarity. In the possibility that among billions of ordinary coins, one extraordinary mistake can tell a story the mint never intended to tell. And that story, Olivia's story, proves that even in a hobby as detail-obsessed as coin collecting, the rarest treasures are still waiting to be discovered by those willing to look closely. As of today, the rare 1999 Lincoln cent with strong double die features and proof-like surfaces is estimated to be worth between $45,000 and $116,000 depending on condition, appeal, and provenance. Not bad for a coin that was once just pocket change. In the calm stretch between the turn of the century and the economic tremors that would follow a few years later, the year 2004 was largely unremarkable in the world of U.S. currency. Technology was advancing, but coins were still being struck in the same time-tested tradition. The Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of the 16th president, continued its long run, with the obverse portrait of Abraham Lincoln and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. To most, the 2004 penny looked like every other cent that had come before it. And for the vast majority, that was true. Billions were minted, rolled, bagged, and distributed across the United States for everyday transactions. But in the shadows of that overwhelming quantity, a mistake, a very rare, unintentional marvel, slipped through. It began with a collector named Jeremy, a quiet man from Ohio who had been roll hunting for over 2 decades. He wasn't famous, he didn't run a YouTube channel, and he didn't make his finds public. He simply enjoyed the quiet thrill of discovery. In the winter of 2018, Jeremy bought 3/$25 boxes of pennies from his local credit union. He had done this countless times before, searching for wheat cents, old mint marks, or the occasional off-center strike. But that night, something stopped him in his tracks. Among a sea of 2004D pennies, one caught the light differently. The coin felt subtly heavier in his hand, though still within the standard 2.5-gram weight of copper-plated zinc. But the appearance was off. The color wasn't the usual bright red or mellow brown of circulated cents. It had an almost satin sheen. And then, Jeremy noticed something even more alarming. The lettering, especially "In God We Trust," appeared to have slight notching at the tips, classic signs of a double die. His pulse quickened. He set the coin aside and spent the next hour combing the roll for anything else similar. Nothing. This 1 cent seemed to stand alone. Under a high-powered magnifier, the details became clearer. The doubling wasn't from mechanical shift. The doubling was in the die itself, suggesting that during production, a second impression on the die had misaligned just enough to cause what experts call a Class 4 double die, a shifted hubbing during creation. Jeremy couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, he packaged the coin and sent it to a grading service, nervous and excited. Weeks passed. Then came the email. "Congratulations. You've discovered a significant double die variety. This coin has been graded MS66 red and will be assigned a new listing in our reference database." He had uncovered something that no one else had. An undocumented 2004 double die penny, possibly struck in Denver, that had escaped unnoticed for over a decade. The news slowly trickled through collector communities. Photos were shared, diagnostics noted, and coin forums buzzed with discussion. What made this coin particularly fascinating was the intensity of the doubling on both the obverse and the reverse. On the obverse, Lincoln's, I had the faintest suggestion of a doubled brow. The Liberty inscription showed crisp, split serifs. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial displayed unusual column shifts, most noticeable in the central pillars, and even the FG designer initials seemed slightly doubled. Within months, another collector from Georgia found a second example. His coin, while not quite as pristine as Jeremy's, showed identical characteristics and graded MS64 red. It became clear that a small batch of these error coins had likely been produced, possibly early in the 2004 deminting run, before the die was replaced. Only a few have surfaced since. Fewer than 10 confirmed specimens of this double die penny exist. And because the error was subtle enough to evade most casual observers, many believe several more could still be sitting quietly in penny jars or coin albums across the country. But rarity wasn't the only thing that made this coin so valuable. Timing did. 2004 was a year just before significant changes in coin design began to take place. In 2009, the Lincoln bicentennial cents would arrive, followed by the Shield cent in 2010. That made these final Lincoln Memorial pennies a sort of historical closing chapter. Finding a rare error in such a transitional era elevated its importance. Collectors and auction houses began seeking out the few known examples. Jeremy's original coin was eventually offered at a high-profile numismatic auction. The bidding began modestly but escalated quickly. Phone bidders and online collectors drove the price far beyond estimates. It finally sold for $84,000 to a private buyer from California who specialized in modern coinage anomalies. The Georgia specimen fetched over $51,000 6 months later. Each new discovery only deepened the intrigue. Some theories suggested the doubling was caused by improperly annealed dies. Others pointed to experimental high-pressure strikes performed at the Denver Mint in early 2004. Still others speculated that these might have been test pieces for die longevity experiments. The Mint, of course, never officially confirmed anything. But as any seasoned collector knows, the silence from the Mint only adds to the mystery.as of today. This 2004 double die cent is regarded as one of the most elusive and intriguing modern Lincoln cent errors. What makes it so captivating is the fact that it's not a flashy minting mishap like an off-center strike or a broad strike. It's a quiet, subtle doubling that only reveals itself under scrutiny, and that's what makes it so rewarding to find. Coin collecting has always been about details. It's about patience, precision, and passion. And the story of the 2004 double die penny is a shining example of how even the smallest, most overlooked details can lead to something extraordinary. So the next time you hold a handful of change or crack open a roll of pennies, think about this story. One simple cent, born in a sea of billions, became the key to a hidden chapter of numismatic history. And it did so not because of gold or silver or rarity alone, but because someone paid attention. Today, the value of the very rare 2004 US 1-cent penny with verified double die features and mint state red preservation is estimated to be between $40,000 and $102,000 depending on its grade and visibility of the doubling. A quiet reminder that even the smallest coin in your pocket might just be hiding a secret worth a fortune.